Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Let's Play Low Poly Modeling Myself. I'm Valentino, and today we're going to go over a few things first. First, we're going to discuss proper edge loops and facial animation. Then I'm going to talk about how we will use our base mesh and reference mesh to create and re-topologize the head and body to the specifications, which are right here. Before all of that though, I wanted to kind of point something out. It was brought up on the post that the edge loops on my model weren't very good, or for the face, and it would really be bad for animation. And that's 100% correct. The edge loops on the face would be really bad for animation. I don't think I made it clear enough that our face is not going to be animated with a moving mouth and moving eyes. I just kind of went overboard over the last video, and I put a little bit more detail in than I didn't need. So when we get back to it, we are actually going to change the entire front cage to look more like this. And as you can see, there's not much detail in the mouth. That's because my mouth is small, so it doesn't really need a good silhouette, and it's just going to be painted. The same thing with the eyes. And we might do something a little bit extra, which is a pretty cool technique, where I put another division right across the eye horizontally. We pull it back so we have a nice point, and then we put a small plane in there, and that will be our eye. So we can have a small texture that just has like blinking eyes or something in there. And another thing I wanted to show you was, because it's kind of important, since I'm not really doing a female model, I wanted to show you what the topology and edge loops would look like that. I mentioned in a note that you need to make sure to model the breast correctly and get hips and everything like that right. So I pulled up an old model I did, and I kind of wanted to show you how, even though it's much higher poly than what we're going for, since we're only going for 700 tries, and this is a little over 2,000, since this was for a PC game at the time, we are going to look at first how the face for a lower poly character that would have facial animations would look. And in this, the eyes are going to be animated the same way we're going to do our eyes in a future video. But the mouth itself did move up and down, and as you can see, there's not many edge loops there, but they are there, and this allows the mouth to move a little bit better without any weird texture stretching. And one of the ways you can get around that is by making sure the texture area around the mouth where it would stretch is all nice and one solid color. And that's what we did for this model. So even if there was any texture stretching, you wouldn't even notice. Another thing is the breasts. So this character is pretty small chested, so if you're making a fantasy character or you're incredibly well chested yourself, this probably is going to be a little bit shocking to you. So these were realistic breasts created for a small fantasy type character, and as you can see, the breasts just kind of sit there, almost look like, you know, they're in sacks to the chest. You can see that on the side they go and they move into the armpit and arm, and they go right towards the center. They don't meet up perfectly. There's no like detail or shadow going right here. That would look kind of weird, and it would make them look like they were pasted on. The bottom of them actually folds into the skin under the breasts. So this is just more realistic. If you were going to create a character that had like heavy plate mail or some other, you know, armor or a bodice or something on there, you wouldn't even really need to worry about that as much, and you would just sculpt over that. But this is kind of what you would use for, like, I wouldn't say a base model because it's almost done, but you would sculpt over this and create the geometry you'd want. So you'd have the breast as a reference for where they sit and how you should produce clothing for it, so you understand how the clothing falls or the robe, you know, tapers off and whatnot. Also, while we're here, we have some hands over here that have all 5 fingers, so we might as well look at those. It says it's a little under 200 tries, so this is way more detail than we're going to use. But if you're interested in it, this is an HD video, and I will pan slowly around it, so you can get an idea of how it works. Notice the inside of the palm doesn't have much detail to it, and that's because most people really don't care about the inside of the palm. This character would be holding a weapon or an item for most of the time, and whenever the inside of the palm is shown, it's really just going to be a texture. Notice the edge loops on the hands really aren't that detailed. There would be texture stretching here, but the hand is going to be significantly smaller on camera, so you really don't have to worry about that. Maybe about this small. And I don't think I modeled the feet on here. Yeah, I didn't. Boots, sorry. Yeah, small curved area for the shoulder. And some proper edge loops for the waist and knees. These are... There's a lot more edge loops in this character than we're going to really use for a low poly character. But as you can see, we're going to do something similar with the knees, where we're going to pinch them in the back to save tries. It's because this area in the kneecap stretches, and we want actually more loops there so we can preserve detail. But the back of the kneecap we really don't care about, and it's going to stretch together, not outward. So we don't need as many there. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to pause. We're going to open up our model, which is me, or going to be me, and we'll start doing that cage I was showing you guys. We'll start doing this to the model, and we'll start doing this to the torso. And I swear we're not going to give me a claw hand. Thank you. Okay, so now we're back to our model. As you can see, he's back with improper edge loops and all. So what was the point of this model in the first place? I kept referring to him as a base mesh, and in truth, he is a base mesh. He's going to be the basic mesh we will probably work with. But he's also more of a reference mesh. This is so we don't have to look at this guy standing in the background over and over and over again. We have an idea of what the proportions are for the body now, and we're not going to stray too far out those. We know the size of a human head, and we can work within those constraints. We also have an idea of where the nose and mouth are, so we can work from that, and where the eyes should be. And then when I prop up my own reference here instead, after I produce the geometry and I start doing some textures later, we can start moving the silhouette around to be more accurate for my own face. So now that we have that done, we can go ahead and get rid of that reference, and we might as well combine the model. Let's not combine them. But we will make it a reference so we can't select it. Huh? Oh, that's a different layer. Boom. New layer. We'll call this base mesh. Oh, not vertex. There we go.